Last week we talked about some of the mark fields in a record for a serial. We talked mainly about the ones that deal with title-related information. This week we're going to talk about a lot more mark fields in a serial record. This is probably maybe the most technically difficult week of the class. In this video we're going to be talking about mark fields for other descriptive elements and access points, and then we'll talk about notes in the next video for this week. The first field we're going to talk about is the 250 field, which is where you put an addition statement. Now the addition statement is a little bit different with serials than with monographs because an addition has to apply to all issues of a particular resource. So where you'll most often see this in the 250 field would be when there are two versions of a resource issued simultaneously. For example, you'll see on the slide here you could have one that are published for different geographic areas, a Northwest edition and a Southern edition, or for different intended uses, a reference edition and a personal edition, or in different languages, say Spanish and English. So these are issues that come out simultaneously, and the entire run of the periodical is published in multiple editions, and so the content might vary a little bit based on what edition it is. And so this is the type of addition statement that would go in a 250 field. You can see that the addition statement goes in subfield A, and both indicators are blank. They are undefined for a 250 field. Now, you might see other things that say addition on the cover of an issue of a serial, but they're not considered necessarily addition statements that would go in the 250 field. They might be more an example of the numbering of the serial. If it's an annual report or something like that, each issue, so to speak, would come out once a year and would be called, the 1990 edition, the 1991 edition, things like that. So numbered editions or editions based on the year are generally considered to be more of numbering, and they would appear in the 362 field, which we'll talk more about later. The next field we're going to talk about is the 264 field, and this is where you put information about the publication of a resource.
264 필드에 대해서 잠시 더 이야기를 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 지금 264 필드에 대해서 국립중앙도서관의 요 코막 부분에서도 이야기를 하고 있고, 그리고 아까 이야기한 캐리스 대학도서관을 담당하는 대학도서관에 밀접한 관련이 있는 교육부 산하의 캐리스에서도 264 필드에 대해서 많은 이야기를 하고 있는데, 여기서 정의를 내리기를 신규 오리지널 레코드 혹은 RDA 레코드로 확인된 모든 레코드에는 264 필드를 사용한다 라고 정의를 내리고, 그리고 이제 두 번째로 다권본 연속과 넥몰 갱신 자료의 RDA 레코드에서 생산 발행 배포 제작에 관한 변경 내용을 표시하기 위해서 적절한 제1지시교와 함께 264 필드를 사용한다 라는 이야기를 하고 있습니다. 그래서 이제 앞으로 여러분이 이제 260 발행상 필드뿐만이 아니라 특히 연속과 넥물 그리고 RDA 레코드에 대해서는 264 필드가 있다는 것도 기억해 두셔야 할 사항이라고 생각합니다. 그럼 또 계속하겠습니다.
This would include the place of publication, the name of the publisher, and the date of publication. So you should record the place of publication and the name of the publisher as they appear on the item. If some part of the name is abbreviated on the item, abbreviate it in your record. If it's all spelled out, spell it out on your record. Same goes for the place of publication. If it has a city and a state, include those both. If it just has the city, go ahead and just include that. If the state is abbreviated, abbreviate it. If it's spelled out, spell it out in your record. The place of publication goes in subfield A, and the publisher's name goes in subfield B. And notice there's a space, colon, space for the punctuation between these two subfields. I will say, for the purposes of this class, we're always talking about publication information in the 264 field, so the second indicator will always be a 1. That means that we're talking about publisher information. If you have the first or the last piece in hand in front of you, then you can go ahead and put a date in subfield C in your 264 field. If you have both the first and last issue, you can have a range of dates, say 1985 to 2007, expressed as 1985-2007, and then a period. If you just have the first issue, you put the first date, and if you know the publication is still going, have a hyphen and then leave that open-ended. If you have just the last issue, put a hyphen and then the last date, so it's just the closing end of a range of dates. If you have a change in publisher, and sometimes serials do, you can use more than one 264 field. In this case, you would add a subfield 3 to each of them, specifying what dates were.
자, 지금 여기에서는 264 필드를 2개 이상 사용할 수 있다는 얘기인데, 만약에 발행지가 변경이 되었다고 하면, 자, 264 이전의 발행지가 여기 있고 새로운 발행지에 대해서 요 지시기호에 3이 들어가서 이런 식으로 새로운 발행지에 대한 발행이 시작된 연도와 그리고 그 장소를 표시하는 내용입니다.
The serial was published by each publisher. The earliest publisher would have a blank first indicator in your 264 field. The current one would have a 3. Again, both of them would have 1 for the second indicator. And so you'll notice that, like I said, you have subfield 3 to specify the dates, and then, as usual, your subfield A is for the place of publication. And of course, your publisher's name would still go in subfield B. If you don't know the date that this serial ran and you can approximate them, then you don't need to record a date. You just have a subfield A with the place of publication and a subfield B with the publisher's name. You don't need a subfield C at all. The next field we're going to talk about is the 300 field for physical description. This is where just what it sounds like. You describe what the item looks like, how big it is, how many volumes it has, does it have illustrations. If a serial
만약에 300 형태상 필드에서 출판물이 완전히 종료되지 않았으면 요 300 필드를 사용하지 않아도 된다, 이런 얘기까지 하고 있습니다.
serial is complete, meaning it has finished being published, and you know how many volumes there were overall, you can include that information. Put 27 volumes, for example, in your subfield A for your 300 field. Then you have a space, colon, space, and then in subfield B you put in illustration information. If there are illustrations, go ahead and include that information. Then you have a space, semicolon, space, and in subfield C you put the dimensions, meaning the height of the item, and you measure that in centimeters, rounded up to the nearest centimeter. I'll mention at this point, notice that both indicators for the 300 field are undefined. They're both blank. If the serial is not complete, then you don't know how many total volumes there are, so you can just put the word volumes to indicate that it was issued in multiple volumes, and then have subfield B and subfield C the same as you would with a complete serial. Or, according to the RDA rules, you can omit this field entirely if the publication is still being published, and you can come back and add it when it's complete. The next field you'll see in serial records is the frequency note. This goes in a 310 field, and the frequency is just how often this publication is published. Annual, a lot of things come out once a year. Quarterly, for 4 times a year. There might be a little bit more obscure. For example, the example we looked at last week with the Tennessee Ancestors serial comes out 3 times a year, so 3 numbers a year is what we would put in the subfield A. Again, both indicators are blank for this field. Optionally, if you know the former frequency, and this is another tricky thing about serials, sometimes they change frequency. So if you know the former frequency, you can go ahead and put that in a 321 field. You still put the current frequency in 310, but you can add a subfield B for the dates when it started being issued at this frequency, and then you have a 321 field with the former frequency and the dates that it was issued at this frequency. Another field is to indicate the numbering of the serial item. This goes in the 362 field. Use this field only when information is available about the first or last issue. So if either you have that information in front of you or you know the information about that item. So it can say began in 1990, or it can have a volume and a date, and it can also tell you
연월차에 관한 정보인데 여기서 보시면 information is available about the first and the last issue. 그래서 초판하고 처음 창간호하고 마지막에 종간호에 관해서 이 정보가 있을 때 그때 이걸 사용하라. 만약에 그렇지 않다고 그러면 이건 또 다른 이제 그 다음에 얘기가 나오겠죠.
when it ceases. These are what's called unformatted numbering statements. So that means they get a first indicator of 1 for this 362 field, and the second indicator is blank. If both the numbering, so number 1, for example, and the chronology, the dates, January 1997 in that top example, if those are both available, go ahead and include them both. You would put the numbering first and then the chronology in parentheses. And if the numbering or the date, I mean the name of the month, are spelled out on the item, spell them out. If they're abbreviated, go ahead and abbreviate them in your record as they appear on the item. You can, however, make some changes. You can change Roman numerals to Arabic numerals, because that's probably easier to understand. And you should convert words to numbers. So if it was volume 1 spelled out O-N-E, you can go ahead and put that as a number in your record, in your 362 field. The next three elements we're going to kind of talk about as a group. They are content type, media type, and carrier type. They are new elements for RDA. They did not exist under ASCR2 rules. These replace what's known as the general material designation, the GMD, which was that term in brackets that you would see right after the title of an item when you do a search result, when you do a search and you get your results list. Content type, media type, and carrier type all kind of work together to describe what an item is that you're cataloging. Content type is the broadest, sort of most abstract.
자, 현재 우리나라 코막에서도 이 부분들이 지금 포함되어 있습니다. 한번 보겠습니다. 336 표시기호 336은 내용 유형이고, 그리고 337은 매체 유형, 338은 수록 매체 유형입니다.
It doesn't have anything to do with the physical carrier. For example, print books and ebooks both have a content type of text because that's still what they are, regardless of how you interact with them in a physical object. Media type has more to do with how you interact with the item, what type of equipment you need to interact with the item. So, for example, DVDs and streaming videos both have the media type of video because they're both visual items. You need some kind of video equipment to interact with them. But they have different carriers. One comes on a disc and one is an online resource. So they have the same media type, but as we'll see, they have different carrier types. A DVD would have the carrier type of video disc, whereas a streaming video would have the carrier type of online resource. So they are both related because they have the same media type of video, but the physical item is different in these cases. So as you saw in the past few slides, content type, media type, and carrier type go in MARC fields 336, 337, and 338. The terms that you need to use in these fields come from very specific lists of approved terms. They are part of the RDA rules. They're available on the RDA Toolkit, which is the online product that you can access the RDA rules for a subscription fee. They are also all available for free on the Library of Congress website. So those are the lists to consult for your content type, media type, and carrier type. These are pre-established control vocabularies. You can't just use whatever term you want. You need to choose one from these lists. The good thing is that once you know what the content, media, and carrier type is for a particular type of item you're working with, you can just use it across the board. So for example, a print serial, a text item that you hold in your hand in volumes, the carrier content type is text, and so that goes in subfield A of your 336 field. The media type is unmediated because you don't need any extra equipment in order to read a print serial. You just need the volume there in your hand. So that unmediated goes in subfield A of your 337 field. And the carrier type, the physical thing that you actually hold in your hand, is a volume. So that goes in your subfield A of your 338 field. Subfield 2 as well. These are used to specify the source of these terms. Like I said, they have to come from these controlled lists in the RDA rules. And right now, that's the only option for these terms. So the subfield 2 for the 336, 337, and 338 fields will always look like this. So no matter what it is that you're cataloging. And these are all kind of codes that mean this comes from the RDA list of content, media, and carrier types. So for your 336 field, subfield 2 is RDA content, run together like one word. For the 337, it's RDA media, and for the 338, it's RDA carrier. And so you'll notice that those subfield 2, what's in those fields, subfields, is the same regardless of the form that you're working with. So you can just remember that across the board. So here's an example for an online serial, for example. And you'll notice that the content type of text is still the same, but it's not unmediated. You need a computer in order to read it. So computer is the term in the 337 field, subfield A. And then your carrier type is online resource, meaning that it's not something you have on a disk, for example. It's not on a CD. It is online. So that goes in your subfield A of your 338 field. The last thing we're going to talk about this week is, or I'm sorry, in this section is an access point for a corporate body. Sometimes in serials you might want to be able to search for an organization that is related to the serial somehow. In this case, this item was published by Academic Press, but there's a note that says it's published under the auspices of the International Academy of Science. And so if you think that's an important organization that your patrons might want to search for, you can include a 710 field, which is for an access point for a corporate body. And go ahead and you would need to look up the correct form of this in the authority file and then put that in a 710 field. So those are the other remaining descriptive elements and an access point field for serial records.
자, 지금까지 RDA에 기반해 연속 관행물을 마크 20일에 입력하는 내용들을 살펴보았습니다. 자, 여러분 어떻습니까? 제 생각에는 여러분은 충분히 이 마크 21을 이용해서 데이터를 입력할 수 있을 거라고 생각합니다. 일부 우리와 기존의 코막과 약간씩 다른 부분이 있긴 하지만 전반적인 틀은 다 같다고 봅니다. 이제 여러분들은 RDA에 대해서 이제 시작을 했습니다. 그래서 단행본뿐만 아니라 연속관행물 또 다른 자료 이용에 대해서도 관심을 가지면 여러분은 이 분야의 선두주자로서 앞으로 무궁한 발전이 있을 것으로 기대합니다. 예, 여러분 감사합니다.